Hi there. So it's been a really long time since I've done an update. The last time I did an update, I was in New Zealand, and now I am in Israel. Um, so, in order to get my visa to be able to serve as a spiritual leader at Canterbury Hebrew Congregation in Christchurch, New Zealand, I needed to have a valid passport. Um, but my US passport, um, as I've already described, is questionably valid at this point. My passport was um, confiscated on the second day after Trump's inauguration. Um, when the State Department declared that because of Trump's executive order saying that there are only two genders and that all federal agencies were to use the sex on the birth certificate as the sex on passports. The State Department said that they were going to confiscate all passports of trans people, starting with any passports that they already had in their possession, which happened to be mine among them. A couple months later, 3 months later, the Supreme Court told them they had to give all of us back passports, some kind of passport. And so I did end up getting a new passport that says female, which, as you can imagine, could create problems at borders and other places where I might have to show my passport. And then on top of that, there have been some reports, unconfirmed reports, of people discovering that even though they have a passport in their hot little hands, have the physical book, that when they go to use it for something where the database needs to be read in the process, that it turns out that their passport has actually been deleted from the database of passports. So, having heard a couple of reports of that, even though, as I said, this is unverified, and I have not been able to get final real data about what was going on in any of the cases that I heard of. This is not a risk I want to take. Um, so I'm not using my US passport. So I am an Israeli citizen, but I had not been in Israel for more than 15 years. And so Israel would not give me a passport, only a laissez-passer, or as it's called in Hebrew, a teudat ma'avar. And I was told by my lawyer in New Zealand that New Zealand would not give me a religious worker visa in a laissez-passer. So I needed a passport. So the embassy in New Zealand, the Israeli embassy in New Zealand, said, don't worry about it, just go back to Israel and you can go get a passport. So then I get back to Israel, find out that there has been a new law that literally, like within 2 or 3 weeks before I arrived here, had just changed. And now I could not get an Israeli passport until I had reestablished residency in Israel. So that was 6 months ago in November. And now I have reached the time when I theoretically can get a passport. Um, but now I've also got some other things going on. This summer, I'm going to be taking classes at Pardes. It's going to be really nice to study in person instead of just on Zoom all the time. So I've got 4 weeks of intensive classes at the Pardes Institute, which is about 15 minutes walk from my apartment here in Jerusalem. And also, there are elections that are coming up sometime between now and October here in Israel, and I'd like to be the elections before I head back to New Zealand. So, Soon I will be applying for that new Israeli passport, and then using that passport, applying for the religious worker visa in New Zealand, uh, and then sometime after October, I guess, heading back to New Zealand. But I don't want to lose my Israeli residency, so I'm hoping to be able to live with kind of one foot in Israel and one foot in New Zealand, which, wow, this is insane. It means I'm going to have to fly back and forth between Israel and New Zealand every few months, uh, which is a long, long, long flight. It's, minimum two, probably more like three flights every time, with a long stopover in between. It's exhausting, and oh my goodness, I am not looking forward to that part of this whole plan. Um, the completely logical side of me says that I should just stay in Israel. I'm here. I'm doing okay. I can finish my rabbinic studies here, and I can keep working the way that I'm working, teaching mostly online, um, and live my life. But after having been in New Zealand and seeing sort of the situation for Jews in New Zealand, where just isn't a lot of there aren't a lot of resources for Jewish education in New Zealand outside of Auckland. If you're in Auckland, there's a Jewish day school, there's an Orthodox synagogue and a progressive synagogue, and there's a Chabad. Like, there are many opportunities to engage in Jewish life. There's even a Jewish deli where you can get kosher food. Outside of Auckland, though, um, there's a lot less. There is an Orthodox synagogue and a progressive synagogue in um, Wellington, uh, but the rabbi at the progressive synagogue in Wellington is has private smicha and is not recognized by the progressive movement. And as far as I understand, there is no Orthodox rabbi at all in Wellington. Sometimes a Chabad rabbi comes through. And Christchurch has a progressive synagogue, but no rabbi. There are a few other small progressive Jewish communities that are affiliated with the progressive movement, but do not have rabbis. Uh, so there's just not a whole lot of support. Um, yes, there are a lot of very committed folks, but they have full-time jobs and lives that means that they're giving as much volunteer time as they can within their own life contexts to hold things together for the community. But having somebody who, like, their full-time job is to provide spiritual support to the community and to teach things that go beyond basic education, and also to support parents who are running Sunday schools to teach kids Hebrew and teach kids about Jewish tradition. Like, just to be able to have that kind of support in New Zealand would be really good for the community. Um, so I want to get back there, and I want to provide that support. So that's important to me. There are people who are, um, looking to me for that, and I do not want to let them down. So I will, one way or the other, figure out how to make this work. Um, and so, yeah, so I'm working on that. Meanwhile, so much has happened. So much has happened. Uh, One totally personal thing is that 2 weeks after I got here to Israel in November, uh, I had a filling come out of my back tooth on this side while I was eating a hamburger. And so I've had basically like a hollowed out tooth on this side since then because I have not been able to go to a dentist. And then in January, middle of January, I moved into this apartment here in Jerusalem. I had a couple of months of being in Airbnbs and couch surfing and whatnot across Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and Haifa before I finally found this apartment. So I moved in here in the middle of January, and I don't know, a week, maybe 2 weeks after that, it was still January. I bit into something, and the back tooth on this side basically like disintegrated. It was so weird. Um, there weren't even pieces of filling. Like I couldn't even figure out why. Why did this tooth? Why did this fall apart? It was like a nightmare. If you've ever had a nightmare where your like teeth are crumbling, it was surreal. It was just like that. So now I've got this tooth, which is basically like a sharpened, hollowed out partial tooth. And still, I have not gotten to the dentist because I don't have a dentist. Like I've had some recommendations, but I don't have established care for starters. B, I don't have money to go to the dentist, and I'm terrified. Like this isn't just simple getting a filling. Like they're gonna have to either completely remove those teeth, at which point I will have no top, you know, far back molars, the last molars, um, and then that chewing is going to be even more interesting than it is right now. Uh, or yeah, like I don't know. Uh, I have no money to get implants. Like I just don't know. I just don't know what this is going to look like. The whole thing is kind of terrifying. Um, and to make things more frustrating and difficult right now, I have an infection on this side, which I am treating with herbal medicine because one of my one of my special interests as a weird little neurodivergent person that I am happens to be herbal medicine. So I literally just went into the garden, gathered up some leaves, and made myself tea. And it has been helping. The infection has gone way down. The inflammation has gone down. I'm doing much better, but it's not enough. I really do need to get proper care. But also, I still don't have health care in this country. I should have bituach leomi, like national insurance. I filled out all the paperwork, and for some reason, I'm still not on the rolls, and I have to chase that up. Sigh. So soon, very soon, I should be able to actually see a doctor. That'll be great. um, but then on top of that, I've also been in school. It's what, 3 weeks now since I finished the semester's classes. Uh, but I still have one more paper that I have to fix and return in because I turned in a mess of a paper because I was, I don't know, sleep deprived and made some major errors. It's yeah, whatever. I Most of my papers came out okay, but one of them was like a huge disaster. And thank goodness that the professor sent it back to me and was like, what's going on here? And I was like, oh, shoot, I shall fix. But I have been sick and I have been sleep deprived and blah, 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 and I have still not gotten that fixed. Um, so, all of that. And as you know, there was a war here. And so I had like a month of running for shelter every time there was a missile alert. But 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks, like a week and a half before the war started, my mother died. And she was in Spokane Valley, Washington, in eastern Washington state. And it was a whole thing trying to get her buried. Again, lack of money being one of the issues. I had a GoFundMe. The GoFundMe got about like halfway funded. So I had to come up with like $6,000, which basically came out of my student aid, which was supposed to be paying my rents. It was a mess, but I managed to get her buried. It took me a month, but I got her buried, and then I sat shiva. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful to the Chevra Kadisha back at the synagogue where I used to be the lay spiritual leader, congregation Beth Israel in Walla Walla, Washington. The Chevra Kadisha there went all the way up to Spokane in order to do tahara for my mother, and I am so grateful to them. And I'm also so grateful to the folks here in Jerusalem. I basically didn't know anybody at all on the day that I got the news that my mom had died, and it was also a huge surprise because literally I had just signed the papers to move her out of hospice because 6 months before that, we thought she was going to die any minute, and then she didn't. And they had said, like, hey, we think we should move her into a memory care facility. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure, let's do that. And I signed the paperwork, and she was about to move out of hospice and into a memory care facility. And then she died without warning. So yeah, that was a whole thing and a surprise. Um, and I sat here on the couch and I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, you need a community in order to sit shiva, and I don't know anybody. Well, I mean, I know a couple of people, but I don't know anybody well. So I literally reached out to a couple of different people that I had only ever met twice in my whole life and was like, yo, my mom just died. I need to figure out how to put together a shiva. Help. And not only did they help me, um, but I also got help from Rabbi Raphael Polisuk, who is a teacher at Pardes, um, and folks from lots of different synagogue communities that are near me in my vicinity came out, showed up so that we could have a minyan every day so that I could say Kaddish for my mom. And since there was no funeral for my mom, because there was nobody to organize a funeral, nobody to come to a funeral, like she was not anywhere near her community when she passed away. Like nobody who knew her was close by even. Um, so uh, at the shiva, I was able to sort of eulogize my mom and talk about her life, and that was good. Uh, and all of that was happening during the war at that point. In fact, the day that I got up from shiva, Rabbi Polisuk came over that morning after Shacharit. We sat and we had a wonderful, far-reaching conversation about Torah and halacha and being a rabbi and all sorts of stuff, right? And then he was like, "Okay, so I think it's time to get up." And then boom, there was a missile alert, and he was like, "We've got a couple of minutes," and like we said the last things and finalized the shiva, and then got up, walked out the door, walked down the block to the nearest public shelter, and then sat down in the shelter and continued our conversation until the all clear. At which point he went off to Pardes and I came back home. It was surreal. Yeah. So, and then of course, because of all of the things that were going on, I had a lot of catch up to do with school. And on top of all of this, in February, I started teaching an introduction to Judaism class uh, for students in New Zealand. I expected to get 5 to 8 people in the class, but at the very last minute, I suddenly had 20 people in the class from all over New Zealand. Not all of them are conversion students. Some of them are Jews who just didn't get a Jewish education growing up, or like got a very limited Jewish education growing up and wanted to really learn more. Uh, and um, and one person in particular is not Jewish herself, but she is raising a Jewish child, uh, and wanted to be able to support that kid. Um, so yeah, uh, really interesting group of folks in that class. Um, and so teaching that class involves about 6 to 8 hours of prep work for every week of class. Um, it's a lot of it's a lot of work. I put together slides. I put together other resources from around the internet. I record a video lecture that they can watch at any time, and then we have an hour and a half synchronous Zoom class where we have discussions and we also work on Hebrew together. Um, and then this month in May, I started a second cohort of that same class, also with all students based in New Zealand. So a lot of work. Luckily, it's not double the work because all of the resources and the pre-recorded videos and stuff, I get to use those for the second class as well. But it's still a lot of work because I'm now working in a new platform, so I'm having to copy things over to the new platform, and there's stuff, lots of stuff. I'm very happy with this work. I'm really enjoying it. I'd like to also teach this same Intro to Judaism class for North American audiences, maybe even translate all of my resources into Spanish so that I can teach the class in Spanish, because there are a lot of uh, Spanish speaking folks, especially in Latin America, who have Jewish ancestry but have not grown up Jewish. So there's a lot of interest in Intro to Judaism classes. And this class is not like the usual, it's not like the most common Intro to Judaism class in the US, because it actually is a year-long class. So we do the whole cycle of the um, the Jewish holidays at the same time as we're learning about Jewish history and uh, beliefs and practices, and also learning Hebrew, all in one course, right? Uh, so so yeah, I think that it would be great to be able to offer this same course to English speaking North American audiences and Spanish speaking American audiences anywhere in the Americas, in time zones that make sense for them. We shall see how that goes in the future. Um, yeah, and so right now I am taking a semester off of classes at Academy for Jewish Religion so that I can recover from this past year, because this past year was a lot and I need a little recovery time. So instead of taking regular classes at AJR, I'm signed up for independent study at AJR, And the thing that I'm doing to fulfill that independent study is I'm taking the classes at Pardes. So the Pardes classes are being counted towards my rabbinic studies via marking them as independent study. So it's not really independent study because I'm studying, with professors at Pardes. Yeah. Um, what else? I have a school, SKOOL, now, called Beta Kerem, which is the same name as the um, YouTube channel where I've been posting my Jewish educational stuff. And uh, the second cohort of the Intro to Judaism class is on that platform, but I also have been doing a Counting the Omer free series, free series on School, and there's a few people who've been taking part in that and having some interesting conversations and writing sort of journal entries every day, which has been neat. And I'm hoping to do some more classes over there. So a lot. I'm doing a bunch, doing a lot of things. And I am generally happy. There are moments when, because of exhaustion, sometimes I feel a little on the depressed side. Uh, I ran out of all of my medications back in January, so um, so been like I've been raw dogging life. um, Thankfully, I did get one more month's supply of testosterone. So, so I had a few weeks with no testosterone, and then I've just had 1 month back on testosterone, and I literally have just run out of testosterone again. So hopefully I will be able to get my Bituach Leumi stuff fixed so that I can go see a doctor and get that prescription and also other prescriptions that I need finally re-upped. That would be good. That would be very good. Taking care of my health would be good. But I am American, so I am used to not having access to medical care. Yeah, it's all fine and dandy. uh, yeah, so that's my update. That's what's going on. Um, yeah, not so much other than the why I'm here, like not so much about the trans stuff specifically, but certainly life is continually transforming in lots of ways. I will try to write. I will try to do another video soon. I have actually been thinking about some trans specific subjects lately, but just haven't quite congealed those thoughts into some sort of written thing. And I find that when I just talk at the camera like I'm doing right now, I tend to babble and not be necessarily very clear. So rather than babbling like I am right now, I'd like to kind of pull my thoughts together and, if not writing a script, at least write some sort of outline that I can follow so that I don't just wander off into the weeds in my thoughts. And let's see if I can post that soon and not months and months and months and months from now. Anyway, thanks for following along. Thanks for your support and all that jazz. See you soon.